Hello and welcome back to Interjections. We have an Inter match to talk about, a 3-0 win over Las Palmas yesterday. I'm your host, Andrew. Irfan, Miko, and Jay with me. Irfan, how are you doing?
Doing well. Nice to see us collecting some dubs, even when they don't really matter. So no complaints from me.
Miko, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing good. Everything's looking fine, and can't wait for the season to start already.
Jay, I can't help but notice that as of recording, Australia is leading the Summer Olympics in medals. I'd like to see some civic pride from you.
Leading in medals in what?
Like overall medals, you have the most medals right now.
In what?
Swimming primarily.
Oh, I legit did not know the Olympics were on.
Oh man, yeah, that's the civic pride I was looking for.
Perfect.
No, I didn't think they'd start until, because I remember that there was the opening ceremony, but I didn't think they'd start like straight away. I thought they started like a few days after the ceremony. But okay, my bad. Yeah, Australia always does well in the Olympic Games, unlike Inter. Always gets good representation, especially in swimming. So not surprising to see the Aussie battlers. That's a reference for our large Australian listener contingent. Just giving it a go. Fair dinkum and all that. So yeah, regarding the friendly yesterday, it was nice to see Taremi use up all his goals for the season. So looking forward to seeing the next friendlies against more stern opposition. Are we playing Chelsea next or something?
Pisa.
That's about the level Chelsea's at these days, so.
We do play Chelsea as our last, like the week before the season starts. They'll be our last friendly. I want to see Lukaku in the squad, but who knows? Apparently, he might be going to Napoli. So I will not lie. I did not watch the preseason match yesterday. I have a personal policy against watching preseason matches. Miko, talk to me about Agume starting at center back yesterday.
Honestly, I haven't watched the friendlies too much. I watched a pitch, maybe like half an hour, the match yesterday, and yeah, he looks decent, but I think the competition level isn't like super high in these matches. Yeah, I don't have much to say about Agume or, well, almost anyone else either, apart from the fact that we are playing pretty okay. We have the combinations there. It was a pretty nice goal. What was the second one? Taremi scored. It was a pretty nice one. And yeah, not much to add for Agume's performance, but do you have anything to
performance
add? Of course.
From a world-class talent who deserves to be in our squad. No, look, all jokes aside, Bisek stood out for me. I saw the second half of the first half, so from like the 25th minute until the end of the first half, and Bisek was making these great runs forward, and rather than just kind of doing like the Zanetti at the end of his career type thing where you'd run forward and then just kind of pass sideways, he'd be looking to make these defense splitting passes and kind of incisive forward passes to the flanking player. So that was good to see. And I mean, we knew that he had this kind of skill set in him, but it looked like maybe it was partly due to the fact that we're playing one of the worst teams in La Liga, but still, this is a top flight team. It's not like Pergot Talese or whatever that team we played is, or some Serie B or some Lugano type opposition. This is a La Liga team, and Bisek I thought looked really good. Lots of confident forward strides and good passing, and good combination down the right flank with Kamate and Zielinski as well.
Yeah, what impressed me was that after Holland scored, Colombo came back and scored twice, and then kind of gave Milan the lead. Oh wait, are we talking about Inter? Or are we talking about the real Milan team that played Man City yesterday and won?
Did Milan beat Man City yesterday?
Oh yeah.
Oh damn! I wish I knew so I could have made jokes about it.
That's why I delivered for you. I figured that's where you were going to head eventually. But yeah, Man City lost to Milan 3-2.
A sign of things to come.
Oh yeah, exactly.
We are cooked.
It makes sense that the best English team decided to play the best Italian team in a friendly.
We're finished. Some guy named Colombo scored twice for Milan, and then some guy named Nasty scored the winner, 78th minute. I mean, they're just brimming with talent. it's just overflowing with talent. Where we're putting in Finnish players like Taremi and expecting them to do something this season.
Look, all I'm saying is one Milan team has recently beat Man City. The other has not.
Still too soon.
Colombo is the type of name you'll see pop up if you're like playing FIFA and you send a scout to Italy and it's like they just send you back a random creative player. Like they always have the last name Colombo. So it makes sense Milan has someone like that.
Who's that
Yeah.
like young talent they hype up, isn't it? Kamada. That's Kamada.
Kamada. Yeah.
Yeah.
Colombo was the guy at Lecce. I think Colombo scored like some really nice goal against Milan last season, which was disallowed for a foul in the build-up. I think that was when like Lecce drew 2-2, but yeah, they scored like some 95th minute goal. Anyway,
Colombo was actually, he was at Monza last season, but he was Lecce in the previous season then.
okay, I'm thinking about someone completely different then.
No one wants
Yeah,
to hear us break down Milan Youth Academy. So, Jay, give me some hot takes on this new right wing back sensation we have at France.
Kamate?
The one and only.
Look, like I said, I watched about 25 minutes of the game yesterday, but I've seen enough. I say strip Dumfries' shirt number, give him the number 2, and just no. But look, all jokes aside, he looked pretty good in a preseason friendly against top flight opposition. So, these morsels are all we really get to see from so many of these young players. Unfortunately, as we've discussed many times here, our coach, our establishment doesn't really believe in launching or transitioning young children into. Well, that was almost a real strange reference there, but transitioning youth players into full first team players. So these scraps are all we get to see, but the scraps were enough that I want to see more scraps, if that makes sense.
You surely won't, but I appreciate the sentiment. We all know Inzaghi's record of playing youth. It doesn't sound like we're doing anything at right wing back with Dumfries and Darmian. This is where I know Mika will disagree with me full-heartedly, but this is the type of thing where when you're up 3-0 against Salernitana in a November fixture, this is the type of guy I'd love to have on the bench. And instead of putting on Darmian for 20 minutes, you put him on and just see what you've got instead of loaning this guy out to some Serie B club who's never going to play him.
Yeah, well, I agree. If we loan a player to a Serie B club and they want to play him ever, then sure, why not stay at Inter? But I prefer the loaning them to clubs where they actually play or to like have a chance to get some serious minutes. I don't see much value in having some minutes at Inter, like 15 minutes or 5 minutes, or like a total of 50 minutes in the whole season. Yeah, if you could play in like real senior football in Serie B or even G, I prefer that option. But of course, that depends on the player always.
Did you say
Like what-
Serie G?
Yes.
Is that the like Primavera now or something? What am I missing?
I mean Serie C, but it's like pronounced G.
Oh,
But-
yeah, my bad.
But
This guy.
yeah, the third level football, senior football anyway.
Yeah, I will say I wish that there was a way when a team takes one of our players on loan that, they have to like pay more money if they don't play the player, because I do feel like that should be part of the incentives. Like, okay, if you're going to take our guy, then make sure you play him, 600 minutes or whatever it is. But obviously I know that can't work, but that's something where, I hope that we're weighing the likelihood that the player is going to play wherever we send them on loan rather than just trying to get them out. When it comes to the inter-friendly, I think one of the things that we've kind of missed on is that Aslani played for 82 minutes and he actually played pretty well. Again, I'm not, all jokes aside, he seems fairly confident after coming back from the national team. And every time he's played for us so far, he's played pretty well. And, it's exciting to see it. I think he has good things in store for us this year. And I'm also excited because we finally got some of our more senior names and senior players back up and running again, even if they only played for a little bit. But anytime you see, Barella, Bastoni, and DeMarco, and you see that Italian contingent coming off the bench in a friendly, it's always just kind of exciting to see because it reminds us of, how successful last year was and what the expectations are for this year. And I will say, I know most Inter fans are pretty skeptical, but at least so far, Taremi seems to be doing pretty well. He's meshing in well, he's interplaying well, and he's scoring goals too. So overall, I think things have looked okay. The one player I can't seem to figure too much out about, and honestly, it's because I haven't seen that many minutes of him on the field, is Zielinski. So I don't know if any of you have watched him in the preseason friendlies and have a view, or if it's just still a kind of a TBD on how he's going to be.
I think, like I said, haven't watched too much, but from the glimpses I have watched, he looks okay. Maybe nothing spectacular, but he combines well with the rest of the team and so on. I'm looking really forward to see Zielinski in this team in the real matches. And as for the Taremi, yeah, has he like 5 goals or something? Of course, half of them are penalties or something, which shouldn't be like rated any lower because of the penalty. Like how we do with the penalties. So every good penalty taker is a added bonus to this team for sure. But yeah, I think Taremi will be good. He will be better than Sanchez or Nautovic last season. So that's already making our bench a little bit better in my books. And yeah, it's encouraging to see him like fitting in immediately because that's what we need. We are going to see Taremi starting against Genoa in the match day 1 anyway, since Lautaro is, well, I don't know if he's back, but he's like back week before that match, so he's probably not going to play at all. So yeah, Taremi is going to start that match. So
Is he not permitted to play Lautaro is it because they have to give him a certain amount of time as a break, or you think he's just not going to play because he would have just gotten back?
yeah, I think he's coming back from his holiday like week before the match, so I don't
Okay.
think he's match fit at all.
Gotcha.
But let's see.
I'll tell you what, the friendlies have kind of reminded me just how close the season is. Like when I saw Barella and Bastoni in the highlights, I was like, "Are these guys back already and playing?" When they came back from the Euro, like the Euro doesn't feel that long ago, even though it was like 2-3 weeks.
That's what happens when you get bounced in the round of 16.
Yeah, I was just gonna say because they're required to have, I think they're required to have 21 days off, and so when you get bounced early, you can kind of come back early.
It was not a long Euro, I guess, for Barella and the boys, but yeah, DeMarco scored a really nice goal for that third goal, but yeah, it just reminded me that the season is right around the corner, which is kind of a scary thought. It still feels like we've discussed this, and I don't want to get into another conversation about it, but it feels like we haven't done that much in the transfer market, and yet the season's only a couple of weeks away. So yeah, hopefully some more movement happens in the coming weeks. Huh?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like anything's close to happening. There was really hot talks a few weeks ago about a left center back or left back, Cabal, Hermoso. Those have completely cooled, and we're looking at a scenario now where we don't sign anyone until very late into August. It just doesn't seem like anything's afoot. So I don't know if that's Oak Tree withholding funds. I don't know if it's just Inzaghi looking at the squad and saying he doesn't think we need anyone. But we're not linked with any names right now that are really noteworthy. Occasional Chiesa grumbling, but it seems like he's a lot closer to Napoli. So I don't know. It's a little disheartening, right? Because it feels like there's a giant lack of depth at the wingback position.
Yeah, and Dumfries still hasn't extended, right? I know there are some stories about how he's about to or he's close to, but he still hasn't extended, and he's going into his last season now.
But yeah, maybe it's going to happen when he's returning from the vacation.
Okay.
He's like still not back because Netherlands went a bit further in the Euros. So I'm not worried about that. It was the funny thing in the rumors were the Van Bissaka Dumfries rumors
Yeah, that was weird.
started. It was funny how the whole thing exploded in the Twitter how the EPL fans or Manchester United fans started to fantasize how they should be getting this and that player
Oh
from
yeah,
Inter, and
yeah.
not that not anyone but Bastoni and Barella and the likes. Like that was crazy.
If we're
But
gonna give
yeah,
up, if we're gonna give up Juan Bissaka, then we should try to get Barella or Bastoni back. It's like, okay, guys, sounds great.
yeah. But yeah, the one name which is pretty interesting was this Nathan Zizi from Nantes, and he's like a this was for the defender left defender position, and that's an interesting name because I was looking at him and he's like 19, so I'm wondering what would we be doing with this guy if we signed him. Uh, at that age, he hasn't played too much at senior level, if you're honest, or like he has played like 1,000 minutes in League One. Uh, so I'm not really sure what that rumor is about. Would it be that we would really include this guy to the first team, or how would it really go? I'm not sure how Inzaghi would see these kind of signings. But yeah, all these kind of names. What was the other guy from this one Russian club? I don't even remember which club was it.
Renan.
Which was yeah. I have no idea about that guy either. But maybe he was a bit older, more experienced. But
No,
yeah,
if we're not going to spend, if we're not going to get Hermoso for free, who's in his prime right now, 29 years old, if we're not going to get Kabar for like 15 million, then I don't see how we're possibly going to get, Renan for 20 million or this Zeze guy for 20 million plus as well. So
yeah.
that's why, enter Ricardo Rodriguez,
yeah, those are the latest rumors that the Inzaghi would want Rodriguez.
I'm still kind of disappointed about the whole Hermoso thing. It just seems like a really, really obvious and high quality transfer we can make. And yeah, he's asking for a lot of money, but you can argue that he warrants it. I think he's a good player and he's obviously quite experienced at the top level. So it just seems like a really typical kind of classic Marotta signing. And usually those turn out pretty good, only to be, blue balled by Oak Tree. I think Andrew asked us last week or the other week, is anyone concerned about Oak Tree? And I think denying this very obvious transfer, and I think a relatively safe transfer in Hermoso, because we're, and that too, quite a reasonable request in that he only wanted 3 years as opposed to 4 or 5 years kind of thing. That was kind of, that really rubbed me the wrong way, to be honest, as far as Oak Tree goes.
Yeah, the 3-year demand, that's not like too high. He's not even 30 yet, or like turning 30 soon. But it's not too much at all. So yeah, I agree that it's a bit strange how we how we are operating here at the moment.
And I thought the whole growth decree thing was reversed, wasn't it? Does anyone know what the status of that is? Would Hermoso be eligible for the growth decree?
No. I don't think it was reversed, but I think the the extensions, contract extensions to the players who came to Italy earlier, and they are still like applicable to the growth decree tax reduction. So that's why it's a bit confusing at times I think in the transfer rumors how the salaries or the growth decree would affect or would not affect. I think it's not like in effect anymore for any new players coming in.
Yeah, well, what's interesting about the Hermoso transfer was that Oak Tree, when it was being considered, Oak Tree came out, or some spokesman or the story came out that Oak Tree was okay actually spending some money on a transfer fee, and they didn't want to give anybody a high salary. So that was their reasoning. It was like, oh, we're okay getting a younger player and giving a transfer fee rather than getting a veteran on wages that we think they don't deserve. But what's interesting is they haven't really spent the money on transfer fees since that comment. So unless they've got something cooking, it just seemed a little odd that they would let that opportunity go and not find somebody else.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Well, as you exactly said, the indications were that, look, no to Hermoso because he's on the older side of things and he wants a high salary. Instead, let's go for someone younger and promising. We came up with Caban. They're like, 12 million is too much. So fucking them. What are we supposed to buy? Some like homeless kid off the streets for like 50,000? Where are we supposed to find a young player? If you've got a young player who costs like under a couple million, he's shit. End of story.
You're Bisek, right? I mean, you're buying someone who's a complete unknown. I don't know. I feel like we've talked about this a lot, but you cannot reliably go into the transfer market, find guys for 10 million, and then hope to resell them or generate value. Because like, if you're Oak Tree, why do you want younger players? And the only answer that is reasonable to me is that they plan on selling them eventually. It's not because they're trying to lower the age of the squad. It's not because they're trying to reduce wages. It's strictly they're trying to find players who they can eventually sell to generate income for the club. And if that's the position we're taking, you're just asking to fail, because there is not a team in the world who reliably takes $5 or $10 million talents and turns them into 40 million transfers.
Yeah, especially you're not going to do that in Serie. I mean, we talked a little bit about this, I think, last year, but one of the biggest problems with Serie is that you don't have a lot of teams that can go out and even spend 15 million just on a player. There's not a lot of clubs that can do that. Whereas you go to like the EPL, you even go to like Spain or Germany, and you can have pretty much the top 15 clubs in those leagues easily throw aside 15 million for any player. But in Italy, it's like if some club is lining up a $15 million transfer, it's a big operation. It's a big deal. And so you're not going to get that inter-Italy transfer unless the player is really, really excelling. And that's a big problem too. And I think we also talked about the fact that one of the biggest issues with this kind of a system is that you need a manager who will play the younger players. And Inzaghi, as successful as he's been, he's not the kind of guy who gives young people a bunch of chances. I mean, had we not had the injuries that we had, you would not have seen Bisek play either. And so when he has a squad full of aging players and experienced players that he likes, and then you've added players who are free agents that are veterans like Zielinski and like Taremi, if you get some young prospect player type thing and you expect him to play with us for a couple of years and raise his value and get some reps in, you don't really have the manager who's going to do that. So I don't know. Doesn't really fit.
Yeah. Perfect case in point. Mkhitaryan played 82 minutes last night.
Yeah, again, exactly.
In a preseason friendly.
Exactly. More of that to come, right? I mean, we know this. This is what Inzaghi does.
You raise a really good point about the balance between veterans and or kind of prime age players and youth. We have so far been quite successful in attaining solid performers in the kind of prime of their career. Zielinski is a good example. Taremi is a little bit more questionable in my opinion, but still, at least on paper, a good example, and that is a proven striker, proven goal scorer in European top division, Champions League experience, all that kind of stuff, and 31 or 32. So you can save, or the fact that we are saving money on these kinds of guys by bringing them in for free should be complemented by going for, I won't say premium youth, because when you talk about premium youth, you're talking about like, these Nkunku types from Leipzig who go to Chelsea for 60 million. I don't mean these kinds of guys, but players who are a little bit lower than that in terms of the transfer fee they command. We should be looking for, what I'm trying to say is we should be going for youth who are above that unknown Bisek gamble, and this leads me to the puzzling sale of Carboni, because Carboni seems to be exactly that, but we happen to own him, and yet we seem loath to use him, and instead we want to just offload him to a team who I still refuse to believe Marseille has 35 to 40 million to pay for this guy, but that's what the rumors keep saying.
Yeah. I think the latest Fabrizio Romano just posted, was it yesterday or today, that the latest is for the deal is that Marseille would loan him for a fee, and they then would have an option to buy for 35 million euros, and then Inter would have a counter option to buy back for 40 million. That sounds like a deal to me. Sounds like a deal which is pretty favorable for us, in a sense that
Neither of these teams have 40 million euros.
yeah, that is true, but then we would get the loan of Carboni. He would get one year development at Marseille, hopefully getting proper minutes to play, and we would get a loan fee out of that, and then he would return next summer, and we would still have the player, hopefully better than what he's now, and we can decide next summer what we're gonna do with him. What I find interesting is these numbers. Why would Marseille accept such deal? Because what's the incentive for them in this deal? Okay, they get the Carboni, the player, now, but is he like such a good player at this moment that they would get some kind of a certain boost by having him on the squad? Maybe some boost, but is he like a starting 11 player? I don't know about that. Can he be that good? If he is that good, then it's okay. Nice for Marseille if they can get a player like that for like 5 million, whatever the loan fee is going to be. If for one season, but if he's a starting player, then it's good for them. And then they can decide next summer, is he really worth 35 million? Maybe he like explodes completely and he is worth that or even more. Then they can easily spend that money. This summer they spent 30 million for Greenwood, I believe. So maybe, I'm not sure about their ownership situation. Is there some kind of a rich owner behind the scenes? But the point is that the deal seems to be quite favorable for us, and maybe that is because we have kind of the leverage here, in a sense that there are demand for Carboni on the market, but we have his contract, so maybe we are in a good situation here to set up the deal how we like, and clubs then they decide to go for it or not. And seems to be the case that Marseille is ready for that, but let's see how the final numbers will be, because it looks like it's going to happen.
All right, so a bit of a slower time, so I thought we could have some fun here. I have assembled a Banter Era Starting 11. We're going to go player by player. Now, the intent of this Banter Era Starting 11 is not to produce the best team possible. It's mostly just my favorite anecdotes from what was the worst time ever to be an Inter fan. So the time frame is basically 2011 to 2018, pre-Conte's arrival. So I'll walk you through my starting 11 and have you guys chime on your favorite memories of these heroes we rooted for somehow, some way. My first player, my goalkeeper, is actually off the board a little bit. We've been fortunate from a goalkeeper standpoint. Of course, we had Julio Cesar, we had Julio Cesar, and we had Handanovic pretty much back to back. So we never really had a big lull in quality of keepers. And I didn't want to talk about a backup keeper too much, but I did want to talk about Viviano, as you may recall. So he never actually played for us, but we owned 50% of his rights back when co-ownership was a thing. So we couldn't settle on a deal with Bologna, and it went to a silent, blind envelope auction. And Bologna had every intent in the world to bid more than us. But the guy preparing the paperwork for Viviano basically bid half the amount he was supposed to. So he bid 2 million, whereas Inter bid 4.1 million. And as a result, we ended up buying the player without any intent. Like I said, never goes on to play for us. But as we go down this list, Miko Viviano might be one of the best players from the Banter era that we signed. Like, he was a reputable goalkeeper for several years.
He tore his ACL in training.
That's right. He did tear his ACL, but he still bounced back, and he was Sampdoria starter for several years, right?
Yeah, I think he played at Bologna before then, and then Sampdoria, right? Miko, sorry.
Honestly, I have no recollection of Viviano playing. I remember the name, but I really don't remember the guy actually. Yeah, he has played like several seasons in the top in Serie. But yeah, no recollection of the guy. Was he like any good or like a decent?
No better or worse than someone like Ardero, in my opinion.
Okay.
Similar in quality to Josep Martinez, perhaps. All right, so goalkeeper, like I said, pretty uneventful. We haven't had many goalkeepers. I have lots of options to choose from at right back, a plethora, in fact. We have bought so many poor right backs over the year. I'm choosing to go with Montoya, who we signed on loan from Barcelona. So it was a 1-year loan with an option for us to extend the loan for a second year. And we would have had to purchase him. It would have become an obligation if he played 33% of the team minutes. So Mancini signs the guy and leaves him on the bench for 3 months. He does not play a single minute for Inter from August through November. Then in a span of 2 weeks in December, Mancini starts the guy for 3 consecutive matches. And he was horrible. I remember watching this guy, and he looks like a guy who hasn't played football in 3 months. So, but that was enough. We terminated his loan immediately after those 3 starts. He got shipped out to Real Betis, went back to Spain, never to play for Inter again. Irfan, what are your favorite Martin Montoya memories?
I actually remember that. I remember this like very vividly, that he was one of the guys that we got, and then we terminated his loan, which is just ridiculous when you think about it, because like how utterly unorganized and useless do you have to be to bring a player in on loan, and even if you just like never play him, but you actually terminate the loan because of how badly you're managing the whole process. So I do remember that. That is like vintage Banter era. And again, not a lot of selection to pick from for him being on the pitch with us. So I don't remember much about him, but I do remember being thoroughly unimpressed and just like shaking my head when we ended up terminating the loan.
Montoya said in his introductory press conference that he can't wait to go back to Barcelona. Like,
I remember that.
Literally the moment he arrived. And I remember there being some debate about that, at least he's being honest, and, he'll work hard to regain his spot in Barcelona or some kind of nonsense. But it kind of just revealed everything about his mentality heading into the loan. It's not like, granted, Inter were in a pretty shit spot compared to Barcelona in the 2015-16 era, but still, it's not it's not like he's being loaned to like Reading FC or something like that. So I feel like he could have been a little bit more or less transparent about his desire to go back to Barca.
There's also just this inherent bias when you sign a player from Barcelona. You're going to get excited about it. It's like, he must be good. He, came through their academy. He has their pedigree. They're just sending him here to right the ship. So people were so excited about this guy, only for like Mancini to completely ignore him. All right, moving to my center back pairing. I'm choosing to start this thing off with Vidic, who we signed as a free agent for some reason ahead of the 2014 season. I have absolutely no idea why we signed this guy. Everyone at the time knew he was completely finished as a player, but we gave him a 2-year contract. You might remember in his first match ever for Inter, he got sent off because he conceded a penalty to Quagliarella and then clapped at the referee in like mock applause and immediately received a red card.
Vidic never played in a back three in his entire career, as far as I recall, and obviously he came from, some people consider Vidic to be one of the best Premier League defenders of all time, but yeah, as he correctly said, he was finished by the time he came here. And did he not retire here as well? I don't even think he played after Inter. I think he just retired.
Yeah, so we signed him to play under Mazzari, I believe, and then we fired Mazzari, hired Mancini. Mancini basically benches the guy, and we terminated his contract 6 months early, where he just retired thereafter.
The Inter experience.
Nothing quite says I'm an Inter player like getting a contract termination. Joaquim Correa can relate. All right, next up, my to complete my center back pairing. We're playing a 4-3-3, by the way, with my Banter Era squad. I'm going to Jay's world. I'm going to Jay's country, talking about civic pride. Trent Sainsbury. So we loan out Ranocchia to the Premier League, and we need a center back. And the solution is to go and poach a world-class talent from Suning's Chinese club. They send us Sainsbury on loan. And there are some pretty funny quotes you can read of Sainsbury himself acknowledging he was shocked by this move. He thought he was going to, when he returned to Europe, he was going to have to go play in like the Dutch league or the Belgian league. And all of a sudden he got the call that, hey, mate, you're going to Inter. Proceeded to spend a 6-month vacation in Milano, played 20 minutes in the last match of the season as a courtesy substitute. But this was our Ranocchia reinforcement. So, Jay, talk to me about your countryman.
Trenny from Punchbowl, which is an old Aussie meme. But he actually had a nice kind of statement where he basically said, I know that nobody cares, but the debut meant a lot to me. And I do remember him coming on, as you said, as like a substitute in the last meaningless game and just wiping some guy out and getting a yellow card, which was pretty comical. But yeah, look, it just goes to show the utter chaos of the early Suning days and the fact that we were essentially doing Suning like favors for some fucking reason. Like we sent them Miranda, if I'm not mistaken.
Adair.
Adair. Like Miranda was still a serviceable player, a very, very serviceable defender. And, in return, we're getting like the likes of Sainsbury. It just goes to show how much, just the disarray at the time. And, and that's what led to Suning eventually choosing to shut down their main club.
What was the deal with Miranda? He was sent to China, right?
I don't think it was part of the Sainsbury deal, but it was just
But anyway, he was sent to the Jiangsu.
I think we just let him go to Jiangsu at a small capital loss for Inter.
Yeah, didn't we terminate the contract early to allow him to go?
Yeah, there's like a reward for his service by giving him a fat contract in China, which according to Adair they didn't pay anyway. So,
but I think that must have been the Miranda thing. Must have been like we wanted to cut the salaries or something.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. We wanted to reduce the wages, so we cut him to save money on his wages. In doing so, incurred a capital loss and gave them a really decent player. Just all-round idiocy, which is the general kind of the running theme of the Banter era, I guess.
We have to lead, as you will see as we progress down my starting 11, we have to lead the world in terminated early loans and like contract termination golden handshakes to players. Like there's no way there's another club in the world who deals these things out as much as we do.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Left back is personal for me. I remember being I don't know how old I was, maybe like 13 years old, 14 years old in 2009. My parents wouldn't buy me a video game console, so I was playing FIFA on the PC. They had this basically ultimate team gimmick thing, except it was intended for Asian audiences. So all the people playing this game were Thai and Cambodian. So I'm playing this game, and as one does when they're playing FIFA, I'm putting together a squad of 18-year-olds because you want to collect the young talents, you want to collect the wonder kids. So I'm negotiating, I'm trying to buy a team, and this guy he was probably from Thailand, honestly, but he claimed to be from Brazil. He goes to me, surely you have heard of Dodo. You need this guy on your team. So I eat up, I add Dodo to my FIFA Ultimate Team, and fast forward 3 or 4 years, and we signed this guy from Roma, and he is hurt the entire time. His loan agreement was he had to play in one match for the loan to become an obligation. And there was a serious concern that it wasn't going to come to fruition because he was always hurt. Then, long story short, we end up loaning him out to Sampdoria. This was Sabatini's idea. He plays okay for Sampdoria. They buy him for $5 million plus a 20% sell-on clause. So Miko, help me do the math here. What is 20% of 0?
Yeah, not much.
What are your Dodo memories, Miko?
I'm looking at his stats, and I didn't remember that he actually played like over 1,000 minutes for us in the first season. That was a surprise. I just remember he was hurt most of the time. But yeah, I have to say I don't remember too much about these Panther era seasons anyway. Mostly
Suppressed it from your
about
memory.
yeah, it must be something like that. But yeah, that's the only thing I remember is that he was hurt a lot. The deal with Roma was a bit awkward. Like you said, the one match requirement. I don't quite get it. What's the point of that? And yeah, it didn't work out too well. Like most of the stuff in Banter era, anyway.
While we're on the topic of wingbacks, I want to give a shout out to. The obvious one is Jonathan Il Divino, but I want to give a shout out to Santon, who came back to us. And
I hate him so much.
He also had a certain clause where we had to redeem his loan if we played him for X amount of games, and Mancini promptly played him for exactly the amount of games required to trigger his purchase, and then benched him for the rest of the season. But I remember, the infamous Santon per Icardi sub against Juventus, where
that's the one.
We were winning 2-0, and then 2-1, somehow winning. This is the game where Vecino got sent off for
we were down to 10 men and we were winning.
Yeah, we heroically got up 2-1, and then it looked like we might weather the storm, and then Spalletti made his fateful Icardi per Santon sub, and Santon promptly got torched twice by Quadrado and let Juve win, with Handanovic failing to even react to shots that went literally within centimeters of his body. So
wasn't one of them a penalty?
No, I think one of them was a Higuain header, if I'm not mistaken, and the other one was a Quadrado shot where the ball literally flew by his head. So but I'm surprised you went. I mean, don't get me wrong, the choices you made were excellent, but Jonathan deserves a big shout out as well. He was arguably one of the most meme players we had during the Banter era. Yeah, what can I say? I remember people talking about new Mycon and this kind of stuff. Or was it Branca saying he was like the new Mycon or something, and then only for him to be. Yeah, I still remember following a meme, an Inter meme page on Instagram, which was called Il Divino Jonathan or something like that.
He was the most meme player for us for a long time. The decisions that guy made on the pitch were unbelievable. 95% of the time, it was just in basketball. There's this very famous meme of LeBron James in the finals, with his hands out, just exasperated because one of his teammates would not pass him the ball. I felt that's how every player at Inter was when Jonathan was on the pitch. They're just what is this guy doing? It's just unbelievable.
You've seen that way. It's the Inter version of the LeBron meme where you've got Nagatomo.
Yes.
Biabini refusing to pass.
Yeah, I love that one too.
Players also quality to LeBron.
Jonathan was he just looked really unathletic. Don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on our MPB, on our large. I believe the entire. I believe a large portion of our viewership is suffering from male pattern baldness, so I don't want to offend them or anything. But Jonathan was just balding in a really kind of unathletic way. Don't get me wrong, we've had bald players and stuff like Cambiaso or Carlos Augusto or DiMarco or Barella. But something about the way Jonathan was balding was just really kind of sad.
He bald in an unathletic way.
Yeah, it's really, he just looked really unathletic and bald. So
I will take this opportunity to also pour one out for Canner Erkin. Just want to throw that out there.
Signed on a free transfer as one of the best left backs in the Turkish league. And
Colpa di Mercato.
Mancini saw him training during preseason. It's what the fuck is this? Just got rid of him right there and then.
But was it Mancini left and then we ditched?
No, I'm quite sure. Yeah, I'm quite sure he left while Mancini was here. But he ended up getting a good deal, and then he went back to. I think he was with Fenerbahce before he joined us, and then ended up going to Besiktas. So
that's right. So we did get a capital gain for it. There was 750K.
There you go.
From one leading Turkish club, and then a vacation in Milano to another leading Turkish club. I guess it went pretty well for him.
So we can move to the midfield now. I'm starting off with a Sampdoria legend, Angelo Palumbo. This guy had over 400 caps for Sampdoria in his career. And in 2012, when we sold Thiago Motta in the winter window to PSG, we needed a new defensive
For
midfielder.
8 million, I might add, for 8 million.
Yes, 8 million. This was our solution to the problem. We went and got Palumbo, who was he was the captain of Sampdoria in Serie B at the time, and we went and took him on loan. He was 31 years old. He was completely finished as a player. He was basically a Grinta merchant, and he never played for us. He had 3 caps, mostly as substitutes, and this was our Thiago Motta replacement.
This move still bothers me to this day. I just couldn't for the life of me figure out why he didn't work at Inter, because I honestly really rated him as a player at Samp. As you mentioned, he was a club captain in an era where Samp was quite respectable. I mean, the fact that they went to Serie B was obviously quite shocking, because the season before that was when they finished, I believe, 4th and 5th, and then qualified for the Europa League, where they got knocked out by Werder Bremen. I think it was like, a perfect example of like a team punching above their weight and then kind of suffering for it the season after, kind of thing. And that's when they got relegated. But I thought Palumbo, as you say, never played. The one game he did play, he was disastrous. But I just can't for the life of me figure out why he just wasn't able to do any better in what was a terrible, terrible squad.
I do feel like there's like certain players that are just so synonymous with like a club, it makes it really hard for them to perform at other clubs. And I don't know if there's any truth to that, but it seems like there's certain players in Serie A especially that you just associate with the club, and you just can't see them playing well or succeeding at any other club. And he was synonymous with Sampdoria. Like I think he was the guy who, when they got relegated, he was like crying on the pitch. And you could just tell that he kind of bled Sampdoria through and through. Like when you think of like players in that era, you had like guys like Miccoli at Palermo, and you had like Di Natale at Udinese, and you had like Di Vaio at Bologna. Like those are just players that at the time you couldn't imagine playing for any other club, and maybe like they just couldn't imagine it either, because I don't think they really performed after they left.
I don't want to get sidetracked, but I just want to say that really strongly reminds me of this thought I was having during the last week, where you remember Nuri Sahin from Dortmund,
Yep.
who then went to Real Madrid and then flopped, and then went to Liverpool and flopped, just like kind of like Kagawa, who went from Dortmund to Man U, then flopped, then back to Dortmund and kind of flopped again. Like I never understood why some players seem to be unable to recover from like a failed big move, because failed signings happen all the time, right? Inter are historical masters at the failed big transfer, the failed big money transfer. But you'd think, and oftentimes what happens is that player gets loaned right back to the club they came from. It was not that long ago where we were talking about Sarri bringing Mirko Valdifiori with him from Empoli to Napoli, and then the jump up just being too big for the guy, and so he got loaned back. But he didn't get his spot back. Once he left him, once he got loaned back, he just couldn't cut it again. And I was like, what is it, like the psychological damage of kind of like failing to cut it at the top level or something? It's
got to be, right? Because I mean, you look at someone like Sancho from Dortmund too, right? You look at players like Götze and others who've done the same sort of thing, and then they don't perform. Or James Rodriguez, for example, is another player where you have some big money move, it doesn't pan out, and it looks like they just struggle throughout their entire career afterwards. Like they can't figure out, they can't get their head right. They can't find the right situation for themselves after that. So there might be something to that. I don't know.
So with the reports of Lazio being interested in Joaquim Correa again, you're telling me you don't think he's going to reinvent himself at Lazio?
Maybe. I'm eternally optimistic.
It's not a rumor I've heard, but let's continue with your list. Who's the next midfielder in here?
2 more midfielders to go. Next, I'm going to France via Russia for Jan Mvia. This guy was a prodigy of sorts. He was one of those guys who received like 30 caps with the French national team before he turned 22. Like he was one of their pivotal players during what was their down cycle between the 2006 World Cup and 2014 World Cup. So he was a prospect in France, and he ended up taking a paycheck to go play in Russia. And we signed him on loan from Russia to play in our double pivots in Mancini's 4-2-3-1. And a recurring trend here, he gets into an argument with Mancini, and we terminate his loan 5 months later in the winter transfer window, sending him, I believe, to Spain. So didn't play much, but I remember being so hyped for this guy because when he was in France, I forget which club he was playing for in France, but when he was in France, this guy was talked about as the next great French midfielder. And then no one watches the Russian Premier League, so you assume he's playing well there. So I thought we were signing a sneaky talent who was going to reinvent our midfield when we signed this guy.
Yeah, and Mvia was one of those guys who, I guess this is much earlier days of like YouTube and stuff, but I distinctly remember a lot of techno music infused highlight videos of him. You know what I mean? Jan Mvia top dribbles and passes kind of thing. I remember seeing plenty of those floating around from his early days in France. So yeah, I was also excited for the guy, and I remember him punching the bench when he came off one time, and that was the last time I ever saw him.
Yeah, I remember also I was super hyped to see us signing him. But yeah, now looking at his stats, he didn't play too much. He had some collateral ligament injury, and then he didn't take part in any victory we had in Serie. Well, two occasions, but most draws and losses. Well, we didn't have too many wins anyway at that point in time.
Yeah.
But yeah, didn't work out like like most of the signings anyway. But yeah, I remember the big hype of this guy back then.
Yeah, I remember that too. I remember this is like, when I used to play FIFA back in the day, and I was like so excited to have Mvia in my midfield or in my midfield for my inter team. So at the time, you're right, he was extremely well regarded. I thought he was going to be pretty much a sure thing, and he was very impressive. And he came to us and just completely and utterly fizzled out. Like I can't think of a player in that time that probably came in with more legitimate hype that failed to perform in any capacity than him.
I do have a question for Miko about this one. So, Miko, I've realized that we actually have had, in my lifetime, 4 players named Jan at this club. We have Summer, Karamo, Mvia, and Bisek. So is this a common European name? Educate us Americans.
Well, maybe it's more like towards the, I don't know, maybe it's French. Maybe it's a French name, I think.
Is Bisek French? Like, does he have French ties?
No, but I could see him having ties to some, I don't know, is he from some African heritage or something like that?
Summer's got clear African heritage.
No, but he's from Switzerland, so.
But he's not really Swiss.
Yeah, but
all right. I'm just gonna transition off that one. So, okay. So last up in the midfield to round it up, I'm going with Tadir. I love this guy. I honestly, to this day, I will die on the hill that he did not get a fair shot here. We signed him from Bologna on a co-ownership deal, and he just never played.
You loved him so much that you butchered his name. Safia Taida was a great young talent. Another one who was crushed beneath the unstoppable wheels of the juggernaut that was the Banter era. We chewed up so many decent players who really, in a better environment could have flourished. And I really think, I agree 100% that he was one of them. Did he not go to the MLS at some point?
All I remember about him is we sent him on loan to England, and then the English club terminated his loan because they said he was not a good professional. They released some public statement saying he was a child.
Yeah, I remember that he was bad behaved during training or whatever, got into some fights or something. Another perfect example of a half decent player who we could have made more of.
he played like 1,000 minutes for us in that season. That one season he was at Inter. Yeah, I think he just wasn't like ready for Inter. But this like this like a thing I keep saying for each name, that maybe any of these moves just didn't work out in Banter Era. But I think the general thing in all these transfers and the names is that the whole club was in a mess, so it like goes down all to the training grounds and the team and how the coach can do his work, and none of these players really worked too well. Or maybe, what was the deal? Do you remember, Andrew? What was the deal with Tider? Like, was it a financial decision we didn't want to keep him?
I don't think it was financial related. I think this was a sporting choice where who would have been the manager at that time? Would have been Mancini, or was it Mazzari who decided he wasn't good enough?
Yeah, I don't remember anymore. What was when was Stramaccioni at Inter? He was gone.
2013.
Yeah, this is 13-14 when Tider came.
Surely is Stramaccioni the coach of this Banter Era side, the young phenomenon who won the first inaugural Next Gen tournament?
Oh, I have a manager picked out. Don't you worry.
Okay. All right, so let's move on. So far we got. Wait. So far we got.
Yeah, let me recap here. So my goalkeeper Viviano, my back line Martin Montoya, Sainsbury, Vidic, Dodo.
And then Palumbo and Mvia. So far this is a solid lineup. Let's see who you got in midfield.
Yep. So I have one correction earlier. I said this was a 4-3-3. It's actually a 4-3-1-2 because I am playing a playmaker. I'm playing a number 10. I am playing a prodigious young talent from Argentina by the name of Ricky Alvarez.
Yes, Tricky Ricky.
Ricky, as they call him. I went back to just look at like posts from when we signed this guy, and I had people unironically comparing him to Pastore and Kaká as player comparisons. He might be the slowest footballer I've ever watched on the attacking side of the pitch.
Dude, I saw him live in the United States when Inter was playing a preseason tournament or something in the US. I saw him live on the pitch. I'm telling you, he was impressive in a lot of ways. Like he's slow. He does not know how to use his right foot, but like the composure he had in tight spaces and the willingness to like take on players was really impressive for the team back then, because we didn't have anybody who was really like that. And so I was all in on the hype. Like if you went back to like the forums and, we were supposed to select like what kind of career this guy was going to have, I bet I'm in that, like, he was going to be like an Inter legend category, because I was sold on this guy. I was so hyped. I believed that he was going to be like, the reincarnate of like Pablo Aimar and like Riquelme combined. And it was just going to be like the greatest Inter signing of all. He was going to unlock our strikers. He was going to, connect the midfield to the attack. And I thought he was a sure thing.
Look, three things for me define Ricky Alvarez stay at Inter. And by the way, you haven't done your third centre midfielder yet, Andrew. But
Tadir.
But sorry, my bad. Ricky Alvarez. The three things that define his Inter career are: one, supposedly scouted by Zanetti.
That's right.
After which Zanetti kind of conveniently stopped recommending players to us. Two, for the exact price that we bought him, 11.5 million, we decided to pass over one Vidal from Leverkusen, who went on to become a serial winner and world-class midfielder for both Juventus and Bayern Munich, and then only for us to get Vidal at the ripe age of 48. And then I think we terminated Vidal for a costly 7 million, which is, all links back to the Alvarez story. And then the third thing was that we loaned him to Sunderland, and there was a clause where if they didn't get relegated, they had to buy him for, I think, like a decent amount, like 20 million or something. They got relegated.
I think it was like 13, but anyway, we like
that sounds a lot more reasonable. That sounds a lot more reasonable, but
we got all the money back basically.
They had to pay, but then they tried to sue us because
He got
Like
hurt.
he was injured.
Yeah, he was
injured
but
all
we
the
did
time.
not let him. Yeah, but we didn't let him get surgery or something like that. So they had to pay us, and the court upheld it, and then they ended up getting relegated the next season. Yeah, poor fucking Sunderland, the Black Cats. But yeah, those three great moments define the Ricky Alvarez Inter arc.
I think his career was probably like ruined with all these injuries. He had knee injury during the Sunderland time and all kinds of muscle injuries.
He
At
also
Inter,
just
I
became
remember.
obsolete. Like the type of player he is doesn't exist in world football anymore. Like the slow,
Yeah,
meandering, like guy who sits behind the striker. You can't play with guys like that anymore. Like the Ozil, the Snyder, even.
Yeah, that's true. And I think at the time we were also heavily linked with Lamella, and it was like, oh, we're gonna get either Lamella or Alvarez.
Yeah,
And
I remember that. Yeah, and
Yes.
where Lamela ended up,
he went to
ended up
Tottenham, didn't he? No, he went
or
to Roma.
Roma.
He went to Roma
Roma, yeah.
first. Yeah, Roma first, then Tottenham. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was much better, but like they didn't reach the hype
No,
hype
he didn't
either.
either.
But yeah, but he
he
was
didn't.
much more effective.
Let's not forget Alvarez scored against Milan in 2017-18 in
There
a
you
2-0
go.
victory for Sampdoria.
That's right.
And any honorable mentions you guys would like to call out from the midfield that I did not include in my competitive squad?
Andrea Poli with the super hot sister. Everyone thought he was going to be the new Pirlo.
Yeah.
Good one.
And then
Good one.
Ranieri just refused to use him. He was serviceable, but for whatever reason, we didn't keep him, if I remember correctly. And then he ended up also going to Milan. Who else? I'm sure there's so many. I mean, Gargano was rubbish.
Kuzmanovic.
Kuzmanovic, of course. Hussein Karja was also
Harsha.
horrendous, and everyone wanted Coutinho to start over him.
Mudingai.
Guy, the man with
He
K
was
in his name.
he was a beast. He was a beast.
At Bologna, yeah. I can't for the life of me understand. I hated the Medel signing. Medel was one
Yes, that's
particularly
what I was
painful
thinking
for
of,
me
Medel.
because he came from Cardiff in the Premier League, and I remember saying right from the beginning, this guy is just not it, right? And I think we touched upon Medel like the other week when Andrew said like his deceptive pass completion rate, and yeah, like I remember he did at one time have like the top successful passes in Europe or something, but if you watched him play for 10 minutes, he was just passing backwards, these 5-meter passes just backwards the whole time, and obviously he was not a great DM in any respect, but he carved out a decent career for himself in Bologna, El Pitbull. So
But dude, he burned us. He burned
and
us in that game that we lost to drop the Scudetto to Milan. Like he was all over the place. And if you remember, that game was rescheduled, and when it was supposed to be played, he was either suspended or injured. He wasn't supposed to play.
Sure.
And then because it got rescheduled, he played and he owned us that match. Like
As
we
a
could do
converted
nothing.
center back.
Yeah, we could do nothing in that match because he was there. It was unbelievable. It was just horrible, horrible karma. I would also throw out a special mention to Guarin just because he was so entertaining to watch when he was with Inter.
Yes, and the collapse swap transfer with Juve for who was it? The
Vucinic.
Vucinic,
Yeah.
and the fans rioted, and Tohia relented.
All right, let's move on to the attack. I have so many great options to choose from at striker. I really hemmed and hawed about this. I considered Diego Forlan, but I decided to start things off with Podolski, who we took on loan from Arsenal in 2015. This is along similar lines to Vidic, in my opinion, where we signed a player and collectively everyone knew he was finished as a player, but we took him anyway. He came here. I think he scored a single goal for us as a reserve striker. He lost pretty much all his playing time to Shaqiri. Miko, Lucas Podolski memories, please.
Don't remember too much like any of these guys, but I remember him playing quite did he came during the winter season or
Yeah, it was a winter loan. I distinctly,
Yeah.
I think he was here in our pinstripe jersey era where we had like the black jersey with
Correct.
Yes,
Blue
that's
pinstripe.
right.
Yeah. So I remember that he played, but he was mostly a sub, or how was it? Let's check the stats. Well, he was starting at first, but didn't didn't get any
Yeah,
goals.
he,
No,
he didn't play
No.
that much.
Yeah, didn't end up playing. Yeah,
I
too
think he
much.
scored one goal against like Udinese or something. But Podolski, I remember, was horrendous because around about this time, I had a good friend who was really big Arsenal fan. Who I remember speaking to him a lot at this time because we were briefly working together, and I had this horrendous dream that we'd signed Podolski, and because I used to rip on Podolski so much, only for that dream to come true like 2 months later. So Podolski's a especially painful memory for me.
But who he was playing with?
Icardi, I
We
guess.
have Icardi, of course.
Icardi,
Yeah,
yeah.
he was there. We had Palacio, Osvaldo.
Osvaldo.
I feel like Osvaldo was gone by this point.
Yeah,
Osvaldo was.
Yeah.
I loved Osvaldo. I love
Me
the
too.
fact that he tried to like beat up Icardi or something, and I love the fact
Yes.
that he got
Nagatomo.
it. Yeah, he got into a got prevented from entering Appiano by the security after Mancini like forbade him to come.
I do remember Podolski missing just a lot of chances, like missing a lot of very good, clear-cut chances. That part I do remember, and then him just generally being not very effective. But that was such an interesting time for strikers because you had like Pazzini and all those other guys. Like there's like a string of guys, Shaqiri that you mentioned too, and Osvaldo, and then my boy Ljajic, who was I still claim was awesome. So it was a fun time. Lots of names that you'd think would have succeeded and done really well, but just didn't.
All right. To round out my starting 11, my team captain. Oh, captain, my captain, Tommaso Rocchi. I don't think a player better encapsulates the Banter era than this guy. We were so desperate for a striker. We needed a striker. So we signed this Lazio legend on a free transfer in January. I think he was pretty much the only free agent available, and we had no transfer fees. I don't remember much.
We tried to go for Jonathan Carew, who was retired at the time. and he did a medical with us, but then we decided not to continue after seeing the results of his medical and like a trial.
I don't remember much about Rocchi's time here. I just remember his backheel assist to Jonathan.
That's right, against Roma. I got to say, your formation did not leave room for one of the all-time greats of the Banter era. That was Ezekiel Schelotto.
Oh, yes.
Scored a header in a 1-1 derby against Milan and then cried.
And then he got
kissing our
tattooed.
jersey. Sorry?
And then he got it tattooed to his skin, like the goal.
Yeah. One of the worst players I've ever seen, Il Galgo, the Greyhound.
Yes.
He was truly awful as a player. One of the most hated players I can remember watching among Inter fans during this time.
Oh yeah, he was despised for just his uselessness.
So, as promised, we have a 4-3-1-2, and we need a manager for this team. And I just had to think myself, what manager is perfectly suited for this formation? And the answer is Walter Mazzarri.
Oh, nice.
Walter Mazzarri, he would never break from his 3-5-2.
But I'm forcing him to here. There's too much talent to let him change back to the 3-5-2.
Why didn't you go for Stefano Pioli?
Wait. How can we not mention De Boer when we're talking about this?
I was going to say that maybe it's a little bit late in the Banter era, but arguably one of the worst is Jean Mario.
Oh God!
I hate him so much.
Don't trigger me. Don't trigger me.
But I think you went for a good mix of like decently big names and just like the kind of obscure players that were so forgettable at the time.
Well, I will special mention for Belfodil, who in terms of like the worst in terms of like the worst takes of all time, which I'll own up to. At the time when we got Belfodil and Icardi, I was like dying on the hill that Belfodil looked and was going to be a better player than Icardi. So, and now I'm on an Inter podcast. So all you kids keep trying. You can make it.
I just remember like 5 years later at post Inter, he got converted to a right wing back.
Belfodil
playing in Germany. And it was like Mazzarri was ahead of the times. He had this player. He just should have thrown that wingback ban. That would have solved all the problems.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that trip down memory lane with us. We laughed, we cried, we mostly cringed. It was a lot of fun.
We've come a long way.
All right. Before we wrap up
We're
here,
headed right back there.
Stop.
any hot betting tips for the Olympics, Jay?
I can't bet on something I don't even know exists, so not really. I'm going to bet on. I think Spain had a decent squad from what I saw, but this was like 2 weeks ago when I just saw the squads announced. So Spain is a good shout of winning it. That's really about it.
Irfan, can I get your thoughts?
It's sure as fuck not going to be Italy. Do Italy even have a squad?
No, they're not qualified.
Do they
Irfan,
not
can I get your
qualify?
thoughts on the Canada drone spying scandal?
No, you may not. I have no idea how that. What does that even entail? Like, how does that help them? I don't get it.
They were spying on teams' practices by flying drones over the stadiums when the teams were practicing to, I don't know, try to preview tactics maybe.
What kind of competitive advantage is that? Honestly, probably not much. Hey, come on, Canada. You're better than this. I'm sure they apologized profusely, and they were forgiven.
They could actually. I think they were docked like 6 points. So.
Yes,
it's like-
they were docked 6 points. They won their first game, so they're now negative 3 points after one game.
But
Yikes.
how does that make any sense? Like dock 6 points in a tournament like this? That's like automatic. You're out.
I think that's
Like-
that's the point.
That super fair for the players.
I know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week. We are tentatively scheduled to have a guest next week. I'll let you guys wonder who that's going to be, but we're looking forward to it. I think it should be good. Irfan's going to be out on vacation. Irfan, have a good vacation, and we will
Thank you.
catch you all then.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Catch you later.
See you later.
Bye.